Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. In daily life, many believers may feel vulnerable to invisible forces, such as witchcraft and evil. The Islamic faith teaches that these threats exist, but it also strongly affirms that Allah's divine protection is a powerful shield for those who rely on Him. In this video, we will explore the importance of this divine protection in Islam and understand why Allah, in His infinite wisdom, protects the faithful against witchcraft. Before starting this video, I invite you to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell to stay informed of our next publications on the Islamic faith. Thank you and good video. Discovering how our faith in Allah and our adherence to the teachings of the Quran can protect us from the visible and invisible words is essential for every Muslim. Allah, through His mercy and power, shows us the path to spiritual security, away from harmful influences. So stay with me till the end to find out. If you have any questions or comments along the way, feel free to leave them down below. I love hearing your feedback. Let's go. Definition of witchcraft. In Islam, witchcraft, or sihr in Arabic, is considered a prohibited and seriously reprehensible practice. Siring refers to the use of supernatural or occult means to influence or manipulate events, people, or reality in general. This can include practices aimed at harming others, causing illness, mental disorder, or even breaking down relationships through invisible and mystical means. The Quran and Hadith strongly condemn witchcraft, calling it a great sin and a form of covert disbelief, because it involves dependence on something other than Allah and seeks to alter Allah's creation through illicit means. Witchcraft in the Islamic context is not simply a superstition or popular belief. It is seen as an existing reality, practiced by those who seek to control or destroy, often by collaborating with the jinn, invisible beings created by Allah, or by appealing to demonic forces. The Quran explicitly mentions witchcraft, notably in the verses of Surat al-Baqarah, where it is said that people learned witchcraft to cause separation between a man and his wife, but that they cannot harm anyone without Allah's permission. Quran 2:102 distinction between witchcraft and other occult practices. It is important to distinguish witchcraft from other occult practices, which may also be objectionable in Islam, but which are not necessarily the responsibility of sihr. Among these practices, we find divination, astrology, and white magic. Although these practices are also prohibited, they are distinguished from witchcraft in their intent and method. Divination, for example, involves attempting to predict the future or discover hidden information through supernatural means. Islam prohibits this practice because it usurps Allah's role as the sole possessor of knowledge of the invisible. Astrology, which involves drawing conclusions or predictions based on the positions of the stars, is also prohibited because it can lead to the attribution of divine powers to celestial objects, which is a form of associationism, shirk. White magic, often seen as benign or harmless, is also rejected in Islam because it also involves the use of occult forces, which is prohibited regardless of intent. In summary, witchcraft in Islam is a serious act of disbelief, distinct from other occult practices by its intention to harm and its use of illicit supernatural means. Faith in Allah, accompanied by appropriate prayers and invocations, offers protection against such harmful influences. Quranic verses on protection. The Quran is filled with verses that remind believers that Allah is their ultimate protector from all harm. These verses reinforce the idea that divine protection is available to those who have faith in Allah and who turn to Him with sincerity and devotion. Let's analyze some more specific verses that speak of this protection and explore the importance of faith and prayer in obtaining this protection. First, Surat al-Baqarah, verse 255, Ayat al-Kursi Allah, no deity worthy of worship except Him, the living, the self-subsisting Al-Qayyum. Neither drowsiness nor sleep seizes Him. His is all that is in the heavens and all that is on the earth. Who can intercede with Him without His permission? He knows their past and their future, and from His knowledge He only embraces what He wants. His throne, Kursi, overflows the heavens and the earth, the guard of which costs Him no trouble, and He is the Most High, the Most Great. This verse is one of the most powerful in the Quran for protection. It reminds believers that Allah is the only protector and that He is omniscient and omnipotent. Reciting this verse is recommended to ward off evil spirits, negative forces, and all forms of witchcraft. The power of this verse lies in the recognition of the greatness and sovereignty of Allah, who holds absolute control of the universe. Believers thus find refuge in Allah, knowing that there is nothing beyond His power. 10. I seek protection from the Lord of the breaking dawn, from the evil of the beings he created, from the evil of darkness when it deepens, from the evil of the one who blows on knots, and from the evil of the envious when he sees it. This verse is part of the Mu'awwidat, the two protectors, which are recited to protect against all evil. Al-Falaq is a prayer to ask for protection from evils that can come from various sources, including living beings, darkness, sorcerers, those who blow on knots to cause harm, and envious people. The mention of breathing on the knots is a direct reference to witchcraft practices, and this verse reminds believers that only the protection of Allah can save them from these dangers. 10. I seek protection from the Lord of men, the sovereign of men, the God of men, against the evil of the evil advisor, furtive, who breathes evil into the breasts of men, whether he is a jinn or a human being. This surah, often recited with Surah Al-Falaq, is a prayer to ask for protection against evil advisors, whether human or jinn. There are many invisible forces that try to sow evil in people's hearts, but Allah is the supreme refuge. By recognizing Allah as the Lord, the sovereign and the God of men, believers affirm their total dependence on Him for protection against all harmful influences. 4th Surah At-Tawbah, verse 51. This verse reminds believers that everything that happens to them, good or bad, is already predestined by Allah. This reinforces the idea that only Allah controls everyone's destiny and that Allah's protection is absolute. Trust in Allah, even in the face of difficulties, is essential to benefit from His protection. By relying completely on Allah, believers free themselves from fear of evil forces, including witchcraft. 5. Importance of faith and prayer in this protection. Allah's protection is not automatic. It is linked to sincere faith and the regular practice of prayer. Faith in Allah, accompanied by the conviction that all power resides in Him, is an essential condition for receiving His protection. Believers are invited to strengthen their faith through regular reading of the Quran, recitation of protective verses, and supplication. Prayer, on the other hand, is an act of devotion that brings believers closer to Allah and allows them to directly ask for His protection. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, taught several specific invocations to protect oneself against evil and occult forces. The recitation of Surahs Al-Falaq and An-Nas, for example, is one of the prophetic recommendations for daily protection. In summary, faith and prayer are the pillars of divine protection in Islam. They allow believers to connect to Allah and benefit from His mercy and protection against all evils, including witchcraft. In Islam, angels play a crucial role in protecting believers. According to Quranic teachings and Hadiths, angels are invisible creatures created by Allah to carry out His orders and watch over human affairs. They are described as beings entirely subject to the will of Allah, acting according to specific missions which include the protection of the faithful. Each person is accompanied by 2 guardian angels who record their actions, good and bad. They are also responsible for protecting believers from physical and spiritual dangers. The Quran mentions this protection in several verses, including the following. Quran 6.38 Guardian angels are responsible for protecting believers against invisible attacks and dangers. They intervene to repel evil and ensure the safety of individuals, particularly during moments of vulnerability. Their role is essential to guarantee the spiritual and physical security of Muslims, in accordance with the orders of Allah. Some angels have specific roles related to protection. For example, the angel Michael is often associated with providing provisions and protecting believers from disaster. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, also mentioned that angels protect the believers by the will of Allah and that they intervene to prevent evil from affecting the faithful. Jinn are invisible creatures created by Allah from fire. They have free will similar to humans, allowing them to choose between good and evil. Unlike angels, jinns are not absolutely subject to divine will and can have influence over humans. Jinn can influence human behavior in positive or negative ways. Some jinn, called pious jinn, can be benevolent and do not seek to harm. On the other hand, malevolent jinn, often called shayatins or demons, seek to mislead humans, sow trouble, and lead them towards evil. The Quran warns against their influence in several verses. Malicious jinn often seek to unsettle human minds by instilling fear, confusion, and influencing thoughts and behaviors. They may also be involved in occult practices such as witchcraft to harm individuals. Protection from malicious jinn is also an important aspect of the Islamic faith. Regular recitation of protective Quranic verses, such as surahs Al-Falaq and Al-Nas, is recommended to guard against the harmful influences of the jinn. Prophetic invocations and purification practices, such as ablutions and prayers, also play a crucial role in protecting believers from malevolent jinn. In conclusion, angels and jinn occupy distinct but important roles in the lives of believers. Angels provide divine protection by carrying out Allah's commands, while jinn, especially malevolent ones, can influence humans in negative ways. Sincere faith, prayer, and recitation of protective verses enable Muslims to benefit from divine protection against invisible dangers. Testimonies and inspiring stories. Many believers have shared personal testimonies of how they have experienced divine protection from witchcraft and other forms of evil. These stories highlight the strength of faith and the effectiveness of spiritual practices recommended in Islam to protect against harmful influences. A Muslim story in West Africa. In a village in West Africa, a practicing Muslim discovered that he was the target of witchcraft spells cast by jealous individuals. This person began to regularly practice the recommended prayers for protection, especially reciting Surah Al-Falaq and An-Nas before going to bed. After a few weeks, he observed that the harmful effects of the spells gradually disappeared. He also noticed that adverse situations in his life were being resolved and his health was improving. He attributes this protection to the sincerity of his faith and the regularity of his invocations. Small, the case of a woman in Southeast Asia. A woman in Southeast Asia faced constant attacks from a neighbor who practiced witchcraft to harm her. She began following the advice of a local scholar, reciting the protective verses of the Quran and increasing her acts of worship. She also sought refuge with Allah by increasing her supererogatory prayers and doing acts of charity. Little by little, she noticed that the attacks diminished and that she lived in peace. She considers this experience a powerful testimony of Allah's protection for those who maintain their faith and piety. 2. Examples of historical or religious figures. Islamic history is rich in examples of religious and historical figures who enjoyed divine protection against witchcraft and malevolent forces through their unwavering faith. 1. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was himself the target of various forms of witchcraft. A well-known incident is when a Jewish sorcerer, the Abid bin al-Ahsam, cast spells to harm the Prophet. The Prophet discovered witchcraft through divine revelation and took appropriate steps to remedy it. This story is related in the Hadith and shows how Allah protected the Prophet against the effects of witchcraft through the revelation of the Quran. Surat Al-Falaq and An-Nas were revealed specifically to provide means of protection against these malevolent influences. B. The story of the companion Aisha. May God be pleased with her. Aisha, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was also an example of faith and divine protection. In a famous incident known as the EFK incident, she was falsely accused of bad behavior, which was partly the result of malicious intrigue. Allah revealed verses from the Quran to defend her honor and dispel accusations, thus proving his divine protection towards her, and showing how faith and patience in times of crisis can lead to justice and divine clarity. The case of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, one of the great scholars of Islam, was persecuted and imprisoned for his beliefs by the authorities of his time. Although not directly related to witchcraft, its story is a powerful example of divine protection against adversities. His steadfast endurance and faith in times of great trial showed how Allah protects his faithful servants, even in the midst of hardship and persecution. His testimonies and historical accounts illustrate the power of divine protection in Islam against witchcraft and malevolent forces. It demonstrates that sincere faith, regular spiritual practices, and trust in Allah are effective ways to benefit from his protection against harmful influences and invisible attacks. Practical for protecting yourself. To protect yourself against witchcraft and malicious influences, Islam recommends several prayers, invocations, and behaviors. These practices are designed to strengthen faith and attract divine protection from Allah. Here are the main recommended methods. 1. Recommended prayers and invocations. 2. Recitation of the surahs of protection. Surah Al-Falaq 113 and Surah An-Nas 114. These two surahs, known as the two protectors, are strongly recommended for protection against evil and harmful influences. Reciting them regularly, especially before sleeping, is an important practice for invoking Allah's protection against invisible forces. Ayat al-Kursi, Surah Al-Baqarah, 2255. This verse is one of the most powerful in the Quran for protection. Reciting Ayat al-Kursi after each obligatory prayer is a recommended practice to ward off evil and guarantee divine protection. Morning and evening invocations. Morning Dua. In the name of Allah, with whose name nothing can harm on earth nor in heaven, and He is the hearer, the knower, is a recommended invocation to seek Allah's protection from all harm for the day to come. Evening Dua A'udhu bi kalimatillahi, at-tamati min sharri ma khalaq. I seek protection by the perfect words of Allah against the evil of what He created, is an invocation to say in the evening to protect oneself during the night. Reciting the Basmala Bismillah, beginning all important activities, such as meals, travel, and daily chores, with the phrase Bismillah in the name of Allah, is a practice that attracts divine blessing and protection to one's actions. 2. Ritual and behavior to adopt to strengthen one's faith. A. Strengthening faith. Regular religious practices. Performing the 5 daily prayers on time is essential to strengthen faith and maintain a constant connection with Allah. Consistency in prayer strengthens divine protection and peace of mind. Reading and meditation of the Quran. Daily reading of the Quran and meditation on its meanings are powerful ways to strengthen faith and obtain divine guidance. Studying the verses relating to protection and understanding their deeper meanings is particularly beneficial. Behavior and ethics. Maintaining purity and cleanliness. Observing the rules of personal hygiene, such as ablution, wudu, and maintaining cleanliness, is important to remain spiritually pure and in harmony with Islamic teachings. Avoiding sins and harmful behaviors. Protecting yourself from major and minor sins helps maintain a good relationship with Allah. Avoiding harmful behaviors such as slander, lying, and bad deeds helps preserve spiritual purity and attract divine protection. Act of charity and kindness. Making donations and helping the needy charity, sadaqah, is not only an act of benevolence, but it is also considered a means of protection against evils and difficulties. Generosity and support for others strengthens faith and attracts blessings from Allah. Practice of gratitude. Expressing gratitude to Allah for His blessings and showing patience in times of trial strengthens the bond with the Creator and ensures His continued protection. In conclusion, the recommended prayers and invocations combined with regular religious practice, ethical behavior, and acts of charity form a solid basis for benefiting from divine protection against witchcraft and malevolent influences. These practices help maintain faith, attract blessings from Allah, and provide spiritual protection against unseen dangers. Conclusion. In this exploration of divine protection against witchcraft, we have looked at the ways in which Allah protects believers from harmful influences and malevolent forces. We covered various aspects, including the definition of witchcraft, Quranic verses relating to protection, the role of angels and jinn, as well as recommended practices to strengthen faith and obtain divine protection. Summary of main points. 1. Definition of witchcraft. We have clarified that according to Islam, witchcraft is a malicious practice aimed at causing harm through occult means. It is distinguished from other occult practices by its specific intention to cause harm, often using rituals and spells. 2. Quranic verses on protection. The Quran offers powerful means to protect oneself, particularly through the recitation of surahs such as Al-Falaq, An-Nas, and Ayat al-Kursi. These verses remind us that only the divine protection of Allah can ward off invisible dangers and harmful influences. 3. Roles of angels and jinn. Angels play a protective role in watching over believers according to Allah's commands, while jinn, especially malicious ones, can negatively influence humans. Faith and spiritual practices help guard against their harmful influences. 4. Practices for protection. The recommended prayers and invocations, such as recitations of protective surahs and morning and evening duas, are essential. In addition, strengthening faith through regular religious practices, ethical behavior, and acts of charity help ensure divine protection. 5. Message of hope and encouragement. In all aspects of life, whether dealing with witchcraft or other challenges, it is essential to turn to Allah with faith and trust. Allah, in His infinite mercy, is always ready to offer His protection and help to those who sincerely seek Him. By cultivating a firm faith, regularly practicing the recommended prayers and supplications, and leading a life consistent with Islamic principles, we can protect ourselves from unseen dangers and receive the blessings of Allah. Let us not forget that sincere faith and perseverance in spiritual practices are keys to attracting divine protection. Allah has promised in the Quran that whoever fears Him and trusts in Him will be protected. So, remain firm in your faith, continue to call upon Allah, and know that His protection is a safe refuge from all adversities. With sincere faith and acts of worship, we can rest assured that we are under the constant protection of Allah.